Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Hi, Camille.
Hello, Magda.
Hi,
Nice to have
everyone.
you.
Yeah, lovely to welcome you today. A warm welcome to all our ELL teachers joining. It's lovely to have you with us. Hi. Hi, Yasmin. Hi, Hakeem. So, a good morning, a good afternoon, a good evening to you all. We have over 1,300 registered for this webinar, which is so exciting. And a lot of engagement from you all. And clearly, teachers are joining today from across the world, which is great to see. Let me introduce myself. I think for most of you, this will be the first time you're seeing me. Um, Bartek, who used to host the webinar series, has left Pearson. He's gone on to do wonderful things. So we're really, really pleased for him. And I will be taking over as host. So I will start the webinar, finish the webinar. And I'd just like to just remind you all that this webinar is part of a series. We've called this series the Teacher Training Academy, and it covers a wide range of topics. So for those of you who joined us way back in January, you may have attended a session on AI, and today we have a session on the Pearson English International Certificate. In fact, specifically the computer-based test. So hopefully today you'll walk away with a much better understanding of a specific task type within the test. So really excited to be able to share that with you. And what we're going to do is we're going to leave the chat open. Okay, so as you can see, it's open now. You're writing in it, so please do continue to post. And this is a great way for you to communicate with me and with Camille throughout the webinar. But also, we're going to open the Q&A, okay? And I will be checking the Q&A, responding to questions. So please, please do not put your questions in the chat. Please put them in the Q&A. We will leave some time at the end to answer some of the key kind of most popular questions. But please, please do ask questions, because this is a great opportunity for you to get some clarity, consolidate on your knowledge and understanding. So I will be looking at that throughout the webinar. So without further ado, I'd love to hand over to Camille. We're super lucky to have him. He'll introduce himself in a little while. It is actually going to be a Magda and Camille double act for the remainder of the sessions. That's for October, November, and December, but I'll speak to more about that at the end of the webinar. Okay, Camille, over to you.
Good. It's great to have you here in my webinar, right? As you have seen, I'm going to talk a little bit about international certificates, specifically describe image task. My role at Pearson is a master trainer, which means that I help teachers and examiners do their job. I'm also, as you can see, a co-author of PT General Skills Practice Series, which is a useful source for getting students ready for Pearson English International Certificate. I'm also an examiner, and well, first of all, I'm a teacher, like all of us here, I suppose, right? So I also prepare students for international certificate. And what I'd like to do today is, well, share a little bit of experience in getting students ready for Pearson English International Certificate. Today, there will be 6 major points that we're going to discuss. First, just generally a short introduction why images matter in speaking practice, a little bit on that. Then we'll focus on the task itself, describe image, understand, we will, well, try and understand what the task is, how it works. And then we'll be discussing some techniques, how we can provoke with images, how we can provoke our students to use images as some starting point for a lot of talking. I'll share also some ideas for classroom activities with you, and we'll finish with takeaways and some Q&A session that Magda has already mentioned. So it's great to have you. There is this chat window, so please do post, because there will be some questions from me today, and I'll ask you to post some things so I can see that you are on chat. That's great. I keep monitoring the chat, and please do interact over this chat window. So why images actually matter? That's the question. So let's start with the first task for you. Imagine that this is an image that you have to describe in an exam, and could you please chat, right? Share with me the idea for the best first sentence. Imagine that this is the exam, and what's the best first sentence? How to start this description? I'm waiting. Okay, in the picture I can see, right? Thank you, Agatha. This picture shows, right? They're having fun. Having fun. These are two best friends having fun. Great. Thank you, Mishko. Okay, it seems that what I find interesting, great. So, as you can see, images matter because this is the way that you actually can be, I mean, your students can be provoked to start speaking, to speak, and that's why these are used in exams. So, they matter because they mirror real life communication, right? So in real life, we very often describe things, and this is what is also tested in an exam. This is what we do in our classes with images. We force the students to describe and this way imitate some real life situations. Images matter. Images are useful for testing English or for provoking students to speak because they encourage some connected speech, right? So they have to link ideas, use cohesive devices, they have to maintain logical flow. That's why I asked you for the first sentence, because, right, it's very important when you work with an image to give it a structure, right? To start properly, to use the, well, proper first sentence, because the structure, the cohesion is very important. And this is what images help us to force the students to use. Images are easy to scaffold and differentiate, right? So we can easily adjust the image complexity. We can easily adjust the image to what we want the students, to the language we want the students to use. So that's why they matter. They are good tools for provoking speaking, so provoking some specific language. And last but not least, they definitely stimulate imagination and creativity. I hope that today I will manage to stimulate some imagination and creativity from you. And thanks to images, speaking can become personal, and students get this additional boost, additional motivation that can help them start speaking. So images really matter, and well, no wonder that describe image is one of the tasks in this speaking part of Pearson English International Certificate. So speaking of which, let's have a look at the task. So let's discuss what it involves, what is tested, what is scored. Describe image in Pearson English International Certificate. What I'm showing here is, well, B1 to C2, because the version of describe image is a little bit different at lower levels. We're discussing here higher levels. So what the students or the test takers will see is an image, obviously, and they have to describe a picture of a scene in a public place or a sequence of events, right? That could be a map, could be a timetable. And the task assesses their linguistic control, and it also assesses the strategies they use in a description of a picture. Well, the instructions that they get is simply the picture. They have to look at it. They have 25 seconds to prepare in the examination. And after they beep, they have to speak into the microphone and they have to describe the picture, right? Then they have 40 seconds for the description, right? So 25 seconds preparation and 40 seconds description. And that's the framework. This is how our students work in the exam, during the exam. Now, the question is how actually this task is assessed. There are three criteria that are applied. The first criterion is content. What do you think? Can you chat me? What elements are assessed in this criterion, right? Content. So what are the elements of content that are assessed? What do you think? Any ideas for the chat? We'll discuss, we'll see that in a moment, but vocabulary, relevant data. Thank you, Parvinder. Vocabulary again, describing the image from every corner, right? For example, using tenses, grammar, background, okay, connected speech. So there are a lot of ideas. So let's have a look. Let's have a look at the descriptors that are actually used to rate content in describe image. Have a look at these descriptors, and can you rate these descriptors? Right. So can you rate the descriptors? 4 is the best. So which descriptor, A, B, C, D, these are the descriptors, which descriptor is 4 points, which is 3 points, which is 2 points, and which is 1 point. So can you arrange the descriptors, right? Look at it. And which is the best one? Which, okay, Yasmin says it's B is 4, right. Thank you. Right, and B is the best, definitely. Okay, yes, so definitely B is the best, right? Definitely B is the best. This is 4 points, right? This is the descriptor rated 4. Another one would be 3 points, and I wonder if you know which is 3. Have a look. Okay, right. D is 3, describes most key elements and important details of the image. That's 3. Number 2 points, right? The descriptor that is rated 2. Yes, C. Thank you very much. I can see a lot of answers. This is C. Describes some key elements, and the description is straightforward and mostly accurate. And the last, well, is obviously description A, just a few basic elements. Description is simple, may not be entirely accurate. So as you can see, the elements of content are obviously the elements of the picture, right? If these are described, the accuracy of the description, right? So how accurate this description is, and the coherence, how coherent the description is. And so this is what is assessed when it comes to the first criterion, content. Let's move on to another criterion. Pronunciation is criterion number 2 that is used to assess the scribe image task. What are the elements scored, right? When we talk pronunciation, what comes to your mind specifically? What is scored? Clarity. Thank you, Parvinder. Anything else? Yasmin, clarity. Again, well, that's a good point. We'll see that in a moment. Accuracy in pitch. Clarity, again, intonation, right. Volume, fluency. Fluency is a separate tone. Good, right. Sounds, fantastic. So let's have a look at the description for the best performance, right? So the best performance rated 6 is clear, accurate articulation of vowels and consonants. So sounds are assessed. Clarity, you said, yes. Bullet point number 2 is speech is instantly and easily understood. That was correct. Clarity, this is it. So how easy it is to understand. Natural use of assimilation and deletion influence speech. So those natural elements for natural speech of native speakers, and stress. word and sentence level stress. So the rhythm, some of you said the rhythm, right, the pace. So that's it, the stress and intonation. Well, the worst 1 point rating would be, well, pronunciation influence and sounds influenced by another language, right? Frequent errors, unintelligible speech, right? Incorrect stress and intonation patterns, right? So these are the weakest performances if it comes to pronunciation. So this criterion number 2 is pronunciation. So the first criterion we discussed, it's content. The second criterion is pronunciation. And the third criterion that is, well, assessed here, it's fluency, oral fluency. So what is fluency? What is oral fluency? What is actually scored? What would you say? Any ideas? I can see from Felicia rhythm. Okay. Logical flow of thoughts. Okay. Thank you, Maria. Speak on moderate pace. Okay. Coherence. Smooth. Thank you. Speed, Natalia, thank you for that, right? So these are all the elements that we typically associate with fluency. Avoid unnecessary parvinder, thank you for that. Avoid unnecessary pauses, right, exactly. So let's have a look. The best performance, rated 6, would be highly proficient rhythm and phrasing. You mentioned phrasing. So no hesitations, no repetitions, no false starts. So some of you mentioned pauses actually, and no phonological simplifications. The weakest performances, rated 1, would be slow, right? So you mentioned this speed, right? So lowest rating would be slow and labored. Frequent hesitations, pauses, false starts, no phrase grouping, right? Words produced in isolation with long pauses very often. So this is what is taken into account when it comes to fluency. This is how fluency is actually assessed. So these are the 3 assessment criteria when it comes to describe image. We assess content, pronunciation, and fluency, and the elements of each we have discussed. Let's have a look at an example, actually, of a performance that was assessed as covering all key elements and details of the image, ideas linked coherently and accurately, vowels and consonants articulated proficiently, correct word and sentence stress, and speech clear and immediately understood. So let's listen to, well, an example of performance of a test taker. So listen to that.
There are 3 people in this picture. They are at a desk. The couple is making a payment using a bank card. They don't have a lot of luggage, only one pink suitcase. They are wearing simple jeans and shirts. The receptionist is wearing a formal suit. She looks very neat and professional. Her desk is very tidy.
So that's an example of a very good performance where you have all those elements that that we discussed so far. So good content, good communication, good pronunciation, sorry, and good fluency. And well, so just a few basic hints for our students how to approach this described image. Now that we know how it looks, right, what is assessed, it's good that we give some basic guidelines to our students. So start with some overview, and this is what some of you did at the beginning, right? I started with them with an image, right? And some of you gave me sentences like the image shows. So we start with some general statement to give it some structure. So to go from the most general to the most detailed one. And this is what you did. Yes, the image shows, or anything like that. Remember, they have to remember to describe all key elements, not to skip anything, right? Anything they can see should be described. tell your students to expand with some position, action, color, emotion, so they don't have to keep strictly to the image. They can make some inferences, right? So they can expand, give some ideas that the image, the picture evokes. It's very important that they use accurate subject, verb, object sentences, so full sentences with good structure, we would say. Another basic hint for your students is to use sentence starters that are characteristic of description. So on the left, right, in the background. So you have to equip your students with this kind of discourse markers, let's say. And right, this is 40 seconds long, right? So they have to, the students have to know how long it is, right? They have to aim to speak for the full 40 seconds. All right. Let's. So this is a task that we deal with, and now some ideas, some techniques that will help us get our students ready for the as described image task, and some techniques that will help provoke our students to speak, use images to provoke them to speak. So just a little bit, just a few techniques, a few examples of activities that I like implementing in my classes when I use images, and I plan or get my students ready for this task, describe image. Right, so let's first discuss why should we provoke with images. Well, obviously we don't want students to give some repetitive, low-scoring descriptions. We want our students to move beyond I see a group of people into this image makes me wonder about the story, right? So something that is some compelling narrative, something that is, we want to move from simple description to something that is memorable, something that is vivid, and some techniques to do that. The first technique that I would suggest is moving from what to why. Always try to move, especially higher level students, try to move them from what you can see to why it is like that. So, for example, you can make a worksheet for, well, that's a universal worksheet that will work with any image, any picture used in class. On the left, you have the description. On the right, you have the inference, right? So, for example, two women are inside a train, and the inference is that they're traveling together for the first time, right? So we go, as if to say, beyond the picture. They're pointing at something outside the window, right? And your ideas, why are they pointing at something? So what should go into this cell in the grid? Your ideas, what are your ideas? Use the chat. So why are they pointing at something? That can be very interesting, right? But what? Surprised by the scenery. Okay, fantastic, because they see some birds, right? Because they saw a rare bird. They are observing. They are trying to get a clear picture of something. They sighted far away. They're in new city. Birds again. Monkey climbing a tree. Fantastic. You see, so there are a lot of elements beyond the picture, right? A lot of vocabulary that you can provoke beyond the picture. So always try to, with your work with pictures, try to move from what into why at higher levels, especially. That forces students to make inferences, and that forces students to go beyond, as I said, beyond the picture. There is this technique of 5 W's. We can make it 5 W's storytelling, for example. Well, 5 W's is obviously, well, who, what, where, why, when, why, right? And always use those 5 W's when working with pictures. So questions like who are they, what is the relationship, where are they, when is this, why are they here? So this 5 W's is a tool that you have to equip your students with. So anytime they have a picture, they have those 5 Ws on their mind, and they use it or use them to give detailed descriptions of the picture. So let's start with what? Let's take 1 W. What are they doing? What would you say? What are they doing? What are the ideas on the chat? Party, celebration. Right. And ideas. What are they doing? They are acting out a play, right? Dancing, studying how to dance, right? Getting ready for a performance, drama class, right? So we go again, we're using the scaffolding, as one of you mentioned, with those 5 Ws, we can actually give a framework, right, to the story in the picture, the story the picture tells, right? And this is, as we mentioned, right, this gives students a structured framework to notice details, build coherent speech. And this is what we want to achieve in the exam. We want our students to, well, give as many details as possible, and give the details in a coherent way. Soundtrack, another, well, let's say technique, right, with that will work with practically any picture, right? This one is especially provocative here, but you can use it with any picture. What do? You simply ask the question, what does this image sound like? Again, this way, if this image had a soundtrack, what would it be? What sounds can you hear? You can ask questions like that, your students. And this way you provoke them to somehow relate to the picture, to look at details, look for the sounds in the picture. So notice a lot of details in it. One sound that you can hear. Music, okay, anything. Can you be more specific? Thank you, Viviana. Guitar, right, that's obvious. You can hear the guitar. Drums, right, so the beat, you can hear the beat of Latin music, right, bongos, right, humming inside your head. Great. So again, that the pictures can give you this, can provoke your students to use a lot of vocabulary, and this is something that you can practically do with any picture that you work with. So that's this technique will encourage some sensory language, broader range of vocabulary. It can be a warm-up for the full description. We can start with it, right? That could be the first sentence, catchy first sentence, right, to give a description. Emotional connection, another technique, right? So you can always provoke your students to tell you how images make them feel, right? With an image, before you start describing, you can always ask them to name 2, for example, or 3 emotions that the image evokes, or what atmosphere is created. So what about you? How does this image make you feel? Laughter, right? Happy. Summer holidays, right? Joyful, happy again, joy, happiness, cozy, pleased, right? And again, a lot of vocabulary to describe emotions is provoked with the image and with this simple technique. And you can use this technique again to start the description, the serious description, provoke the description, to warm up for the description. And this can make the descriptions more personal, right? And give students extra motivation to describe it, right? To get more engaged. If you start with their emotions, right? It's you force them, you provoke them to get emotional somehow, to relate to the picture, right? And then obviously this picture description is much easier when they have this extra motivation, when they feel related. And one more technique, the role, well, I call it the role play. Obviously, this is the technique in which you ask your students to step into the picture, right? So you can tell your students, imagine you're the person in this photo. What would you be thinking? What would you be saying, for example? Something like that. So what is the man in the middle thinking? What do I get in the chat? All right. We made it. Thank you, Mariana. Right. We made it. Yuppie. I graduated. It makes me feel I got it. I did it. Thank you, Farida. Thank you for that. Okay, so surprise, he won something. I'm over the moon. Oh, great. So your students might be forced to use some idiomatic language as well. So this is again another provocative technique with which you can force your students to, well, give them this motivation to look at the picture, look for the details, think why, what this person might be thinking, because and find the answer to that by looking around, looking for the details. And that's a great technique that you can use actually with any photo. Right. So the students go beyond the picture, right? So they get into, for example, the heads of the people in the, or animals, let's say, in the photo. Just a little bit when we talk about working with images and provoking with images, just a little bit on, I'd like to share some ideas on sourcing images. And well, I personally use three sources. I suppose that that if you work with images, you use the same sources. Just wanted to discuss them. Well, the first great source of images to work with students is obviously some high quality image libraries, or free or low cost. So there are a lot of libraries, a lot of stock photos obviously available online. I know websites like Unsplash, Pexels, Pixabay, Freepik, or whatever, right? What is good about them, what I like about them, that you can practically find almost any topic or theme. So it's very quick, convenient. Any idea that comes to your mind, you just type the idea and you get a lot of photos. Or images. And what is important is that you get those authentic photos, right, from there, so you can well, show real people. Because, well, with AI generated images, which is something that a lot of us do, yes, these images are still, well, they have this feel of being non-authentic. So if I need something authentic, I prefer stock photos much more than AI generated images. But AI generated images are great for abstract things, right? And so if you want to really provoke students, right, and give them some provocation. So you, for example, type, I don't know, a squirrel on a bike, right? And you get very abstract images, and this is good, and this is well done in AI. And courseware, right? Last but not least, it's courseware like books are great because they have the images that are created for specific language issues. They fit into the curriculum. They match students' level, right? And they save our time because we have a lot of images. If we work with some courseware, if we work with some course books, we simply have images and we can use them with students. So those three sources of images are the ones that are well, best for working with images and with students. So let's talk a little bit about, we've discussed some techniques that we can apply to different images, and let's talk about some classroom activities, right? So let's bring the techniques into the classroom, some specific classroom activities that I'd like to share with you. And let's start with the first one. This is an activity that I like very much. This is called Describe, well, I call it Describe Image card game. What you need to do, you need to prepare some discourse markers, right? Worksheet with discourse marker that you cut out, right? And you use these as cards for the card game. So you get an image, right? You get a group of students who are holding the cards. So each student has a set of discourse markers. And the idea is to describe the image, right? But in order, if they want to say something, they have to, well, start the sentence with one discourse marker from the hand of cards that they're holding. And this way they jointly, as if to say, describe the image, but they can compete because the first person to get rid of all the cards will be the winner of this activity, of this competition, and can get some extra prize. So that's a card game in which they have to get rid of the discourse markers as quickly as possible. But if they want to get rid of them, they have to produce a sentence. So this way you provoke the students to use the discourse markers, you equip them with the discourse markers, right? And you get them ready for, well, later on picture description. Another activity that is based mostly on the role play technique that I mentioned, right? This is I call it a storyboard, right? So for this, you need you need teams again, and each team receives a set of 3-4 images. They have, I know, 10 minutes, let's say, to plan a single cohesive narrative that connects all the images.
Hi everyone. Hello. I think we've lost Camille. Let's just wait a second to see if he's come back. Hey, okay. Thank you everyone. I'm sure he'll rejoin. He's obviously lost connection. Look, I've been having a look at the Q&A, and I just wanted to call out one thing that is coming up time and time again, which is...
I'm sorry, there were some technical issues here, right? And now I'm back.
No worries, Camille. I just wanted you take time. I just want to take a couple of minutes to answer some of the questions that came into the chat at this point. So yeah, take your time. I just need a couple of minutes. So yeah, great to see. Okay, hi, Biraj. Yes, very good. Lovely to see you as well. So folks, I just want to really emphasize the difference between this webinar series and the other webinar series that we run, okay? So as you know, within Pearson, we have a broad English language learning assessment portfolio, okay? So we have quite a lot of tests, right? And we essentially run webinars on different tests. And today, what's really important to call out, if you look at the top of Camille's lovely slides, it says the Pearson International English Certificate. This is often abbreviated to PEIC. Some people call it PEIC. And we have a paper-based version and a computer-based version. And Camille is talking to the computer-based version today, and even more specifically to B1 and C2 levels, because there is a difference between the A1 and A2 tests. Okay, they still have a describe image task, but the prompt and the expectations of the test taker are slightly different. So Camille, we've had a few questions around the difference between the Pearson test of English and the Pearson English International Certificate. So I think for the webinar, I'm going to take this as really good feedback, because I think it might be useful for me in the next webinar to introduce very quickly the key differences between those two tests. But that's for...
Yeah, that's a good point, because in the paper-based version, we also have a picture description, which is a little bit different, obviously, from this computer-based test. But, well, the techniques and activities can be used also for the paper-based test. Absolutely so. I'm sorry for this technical thing. And shall I take over now, Magda?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay.
Well done.
Right. So just a few more activities that I wanted to share. So there is this 30 seconds challenge, which is a nice technique, because a nice activity, sorry, because it forces the students to give fluent descriptions, right? So you can have any set of images, classroom projector, flashcards, whatever, and you show the image for 5 seconds, and after that, the students have to start the description. They have 30 seconds, right? And if they pause, they get penalty points, for example. When they finish, another student takes over, and they have to go on for 20 seconds to beyond the picture, right? So it's not description, but what's beyond the picture, right? So what the people are thinking, what the people are saying, what the image is making you feel like, so going beyond the picture, right? And this activity, this classroom activity, can train time awareness and fluency under pressure, just like in the real task, just like in the exam itself. The concealed picture, another activity that I would suggest when working with pictures. So this is a per work activity that we have 2 students, and one student gets a picture, right? The other students can't see that. And this student A, let's call them, they work out, for example, 10 questions about the picture, right? So they work with the picture and they have to analyze it, because they have to ask questions about it. Then student A shows the picture to student B, and student B has 1 minute to look at it. And after 1 minute, student A conceals the picture, and student B has to answer the questions from student A, and student A gets a point for each unanswered question. So that could be competitive, and you might think of some prize here as well. And it's I like making memes in my classes, right? So I use a lot of pictures to meme. So obviously students can work in pairs or teams. They look at the image on the screen that I display on the screen, and they have to create short, funny, or creative caption, like a meme, for example. So they say the caption aloud with clear pronunciation, obviously, natural intonation, and the class votes on the most original and funniest caption. Here, AI is a little bit better probably than stock images, because you can create really abstract, thought-provoking pictures. And obviously this short and punchy delivery helps with rhythm, stress. They have to connect image with an idea. So what about you? What's your idea for the caption here? Let me have a look at the chat. Any idea for some, well, let's say original caption here? Let's see. That's not an easy one, right? So you have to be aware that your students might struggle with that. So do I get any ideas here for the caption? Okay, right. They're going for camping. Are we there yet? Okay, yes, that's a, let's say, catchy caption. Thank you, Carolina. Well, let's pretend we know where I'm going. Right, that's great. So that's what he is thinking. Thank you for that. Right, so this is again, you provoke, they have to say the caption, right? So this caption could be an element of description. And the last, not least, right? So opposite description, right? This is something that I like. This is something provoking also. Students work in pairs. Each pair gets a picture. And in turns, the idea, it's like a match. They have to do it in turns. They say sentences that describe the opposite of the picture, right? The more sophisticated, the better. For example, I know the picture shows 2 enemies here, and they can't make any pauses, right? The moment they pause, they lose the game. So they continue until one of them makes a pause. They lose the round, right? So this is also a competition. You can run it and hold it in pairs, and then you can continue with another picture, right? So this activity forces them to use broad range of vocabulary, and also There are no pauses, so that will improve the fluency. Good. So this is the time for just some takeaways from me, right? Then there will be some takeaways from you. So there will be 4 things I'd like you to leave this webinar with today. So remember that describe image tests content, pronunciation, and fluency. So you have to take these 3 elements into consideration when teaching for describe image. Images are great to provoke creativity, critical thinking, extended speaking, but, well, you have to, well, provoke with them, right? You have to use them. Sometimes don't be afraid of some innovative new methods to work with pictures. The preparation, right, for this describe image should mix different strategies, structure, linking devices, timing, and that should be combined with playful tasks to reduce anxiety. So obviously the more the more fun our students have, the better the learning process is. That's what I strongly believe in my classes. And provocation works, right? So I like working with unusual, humorous images. They push learners, students to think differently, to start speaking very often. So provoking with images really works. And this is another thing that I strongly believe in my classes with my students. So for you, next 2-3 classes, because I suppose most of us or all of us are teachers here, what I suggest you do? So some homework for you. Right, the first piece of homework, bring 3 new images to your class and have students describe them. 1 image from the stock, some from website, another AI generated, and another from the courseware, just to practice working with different sources for images. Next 2-3 classes, teach your students 5 useful linking phrases in the foreground. This suggests that, things like that, right? And make them students use them in some mini practice rounds. Introduce some timing practice. So use a timer in class so students get used to this 40-second descriptions, right? So introduce that into your classes during the next 2-3 classes, and assign 1 short piece of homework in which students can pick an image online and record themselves describing it. That's good for working with microphone, because in the computer-based test they work with a microphone, and well, if you set it for homework, this recording themselves, that's some practice working with the microphone. So we'll have some takeaways from you, right, in a moment, because there's going to be this Q&A session that Magda promised. Now it's over to you, Magda, for what's coming next.
Yes, thank you, Camille. That's great. So actually, this is a great segue into the Q&A, because we've had a lot of questions around next steps. In about 24 hours, Zoom will send you a link to complete a short survey. This is entirely optional, but we really appreciate your feedback. And I can see a typo on the slide, that's my fault. Sign up for the next webinar, because remember, we have one every month in the Teacher Training Academy. So there's one in October, there's one coming up in November, and one coming up in December. Now, Camille, a question that has been asked many times is around certificates, because actually we do not give certificates after each webinar, okay? We give certificates after a block of webinars, and the Provoke block has only just started. This is the first of 4 webinars. So essentially, to get your certificate in December, you need to have attended today's webinar, attended October's, attended November's and December's, and then you will be receiving that certificate. Okay, so I hope that's clearer for you. And then next slide, please. The next webinar, again, the same double act, me as host, and you'll see Camille again, which is wonderful news. And he is going to deep dive into a different task type, but within the Pearson English International Certificate, computer-based, okay? And that task type is called Read and Write. And you can sign up via our website. I'll post the link in a moment, and that's on the 28th of October. Okay, so I think without further ado, Camille, we've got 10 minutes. So before you stop sharing, we actually had a really, just a couple of questions around clarification with what you said, okay? So the first one is, and I need to scroll down. Yeah, can you please just repeat again about the storyboard? So if we can go back to that slide, because I think that is when when we lost you, and Nadezhda would like to just
Yeah, okay. I'm just moving back to this. Well, the idea here was, right, that you have a set of 3-4 images that are somehow connected, right? Preferably presenting the same group of people, for example, or I don't know, animals. And you give this to a team of 3 or 4 people, 3 or 4 students, and they have 10 minutes to, well, digest it, decide on the order of pictures, brainstorm the story, what's happening before, after, during, right? So they work together as a team. And then there is this presentation phase in which each team presents a story to the class. Every team member should be engaged in that, obviously, and right, and then the class votes for. In my case, I always do it the funniest story, but you can make it votes. The class votes for the best story, right? Because I like this element of fun in my classes, so that's why I make it always voting for the funniest story. So that's the very simple structure of the activity. Well, the idea is that. You make a story from a few pictures. That's why it's called, well, the storyboard.
I'm on mute. There we go. Good. And one more clarification. So if we just stay on the deck for a little while. So Miriam asks, can we see the 1 in 6 low and high criteria for pronunciation again?
Okay, so I'm going back to pronunciation, right. Yeah, so I'm just showing the highest and the lowest rating, just to give you the idea what is assessed when it comes to pronunciation, right? So this lowest rating 1 is this pronunciation that is strongly influenced by another language. There are sound errors, vowel consonant errors. The speech is unintelligible, right? Hard to understand. Incorrect stress patterns and syllable counts, right? This is the lowest rating for pronunciation.
Thanks, Camille. That's great. Okay, so I think let's go to the questions. I'm afraid there are a few admin-y questions, so I'm just going to answer Patricia, Alicia, and Fawaz all in one go. You can definitely get the recording of the session. I think, Camille, people were asking, you know, because your materials and activities are super relevant to the work that these teachers do, can they get the materials? I've said that we don't share the materials, but of course they can rewatch the recording and get a sense of the activities to try out in their classrooms. So everyone, I'm just going to post I'm just posting now the link to our webinars. In about a week's time, you'll see the webinar uploaded to that webpage. So you'll be able to review Camille's activities, and we really do encourage you to experiment and practice and give us your feedback on those. Alicia, the link is in that to the future webinars. The link is in that link. the link to the webinars is in that link. So do click into that. And Fawaz, the survey is after every webinar. Yeah. So, you know, we'd really appreciate your feedback. Of course, it's the first time I'm hosting a session like this. So I would love to hear your feedback. Okay. So that's 3 questions done. We do have some kind of teaching questions as well. So a good one from Nadezhda again. Okay, this is very specific, Camille, and I'm going to answer it live. I'm not sure if you can see it, but in the describe image card game that you talk to, do students get the same discourse markers or different?
Well, I would say the best idea is to give them different discourse markers, right? So they have a random set of discourse markers. You just prepare a grid or a worksheet with different discourse markers. You cut it out and you give each student a set of different discourse markers. And this way you provoke them to use them, right? Because the idea is that they want to get rid of them as quickly as possible. So definitely different discourse markers is the best choice for this. But well, this is obviously up to you. If you have some set of, I know, 6 that you somehow especially want to focus on, you can give all of them the same markers. But to me, different ones works best.
Okay, great. Thanks, Camille. Okay, Isolde asks an interesting question. Now, she says, what are the provocation words? Please share some. So I guess some examples here. I didn't actually hear you say provocation myself. Did you, first of all? Did you say something else? And if you did, can you share some examples?
So provocation words, it means I'm not sure if I'm getting that right. So you provoke with the idea was to show some techniques to that provoke students to speak, right? So the images, right, and the way we use them, the techniques we use them are somehow provocative. They're supposed to force the students to say something, to relate to the picture, to give fluent and good descriptions. So that was the idea here. I'm not sure if I'm answering the question right now.
No, I think you are. And I think Maria de Los Angeles, she said a synonym could be elicitation. And yeah, I guess Isolde, you know, it really depends on the image, right? Because the words you elicit are going to be very different from image to image. Okay, let's move on to Biraj, and this is a very broad question. We only have like a minute, but improving pronunciation and intonation generally. Any activities or tips, Camille?
Okay, so for example, I have questions like that from my students, I have to give some quick tip, let's say. So what I say, why don't you record yourself, for example, and listen and first you yourself identify, for example, some pronunciation issues. There is also this technique of shadowing, for example, right? So you have some well, preferably relatively low speed native speakers speaking at low speed, right? And shadowing them, for example, especially if they have the text. Reading aloud, right? And also is good for pronunciation. So, well, there are a lot of tips, but just a few that well come to my mind. The typical ones that the tips that I give to my students when they ask this question, because they do, right? This is very often the question from students.
Fantastic, great. And I love how Biraj, how active you are in all of these series. It's wonderful to see you again. Okay, that's it, Camille, for questions for you. I think for today, I think you've done enough. So Adwen, yes, you can get access to this webinar later. I've just again popped the link in the chat. So just bookmark that page because that is the one single page that you need to sign sign up for the webinars and also to replay them. Hakim, very sweetly, Camille, has said that he would be transported with joy if you were to visit his school in Istanbul in Turkey. So a big shout
That
out
would
to
be.
Hakim today. I think that is a
Thank
big
you very much. That's so sweet.
And Hakim, we can't promise that, but what we can definitely confirm is that you need to attend all 4 webinars in this Provoke block to be awarded a certificate. Okay. Good. I think that is it. So thank you, everyone. We're at time. It's been an absolute pleasure to have so many of you join us. Remember, it's just about taking 1, 2, or 3 little tips or tricks, techniques, classroom activities to try and implement. We want you to put these ideas into practice. And please do go onto our website to find out more information about the Pearson English International Certificate, the computer-based version, because we do have more sessions coming up on the various task types. So it would be great if you did some background reading, so you can come to the next webinar with even more questions to keep me busy. Okay, Camille, have a wonderful
Thank you very much.
evening, and we'll see you
Same
next
to
week.
you all.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.